just perseverance, transformation, just personal growth, and truly like changing yourself from just one level and to the next level. You know, I think that one of the best things that anybody can do for anybody is to, well, basically become a leader and bring other people together and into leadership, because I think leaders are what move the needle, right? So the more leaders we can actually create in the world, the more change we can make, because if you're not like at that level, if you don't have some type of authority, then you know your power is low.
As you continue to grow on your path to leadership, you know, how do we navigate the pitfalls that so many great leaders in the past have had, where once it starts to grow, it seems to become about them and it's their movement, and it's like the leader now owns the movement, and that's like the biggest pitfall. Like the movement has to grow bigger than the initial leader.
I love it. And I first want to say I'm feeling charged up right now, dude. I'm feeling charged up because this is my favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite.
We cooking, boy. We cooking.
Yeah. So I've always thought that it's actually crazy when I think back to when I was younger, and you remember when you were in like kindergarten or just, I don't know, maybe first, second grade, but I remember when we're like learning how to just really spell things, and I remember the word together. To get her is like what my teacher had said. That was like how you remembered it, to get her. And whatever reason, that word just stuck out to me so much. The word together, it's just such a beautiful word, right? Bringing people together, bringing it together. Like it really is a word that in essence means completion. And like I said, I've always loved leadership. So putting the two words together, lead, together, I think it just has such a deep and beautiful meaning if you truly, truly look at it. To lead together, to be able to like put your ego aside, to put yourself aside, to see the greater, grander vision of what true collaboration can bring, because collaboration is infinite. Because with your connections, with my connections, and if we both feel like we're leading together, I mean, that's how you change the world.
I believe that as well. And I think that we are like right on the precipice of being surrounded by so many actualized individuals, and they're connecting and they're networking. And if we can just come together, we're going to cross a threshold where it starts to become like we now have the ability to create real impact on not just Austin, Texas, but the world. I think the pitfall is we get so invested in our creation baby. It's like, you just think of the hours, the years, the time spent when no one else was around, when no one believed in you. Then you finally get it to something, and then someone else comes along, and now you got to give it away to like to them and to the world. It's so hard to not be like, but no, that's mine. I made it. I got it to here. And it's love. It's love for that thing that you are leading, for that movement that you are building. But at a certain point, you got to let the baby grow into a child and walk its own path, and you be the proud dad that is there to support but is not trying to own its life. It's like leadership of a movement is very similar to the arc of a parent in a certain sense.
100%. And I think which of course, I feel like it's impossible to not be in that frame of like, I created this and this is mine. It's pretty impossible, but also I think it's an opportunity to check in with yourself and be like, what did I really do this for? You know, because like along my journey, I've had several like outside influences remind me, why did you start? Like, why did you really start? You know, like what was your mission? And initially my mission was I just wanted to create a world that there was less suffering and less loneliness, right? Yeah. And that was truly like the seed in my heart that like led me on a journey. But
another big part of it is at a certain point when you're scaling communities, when you're scaling movements, it does start to become something bigger than yourself. And then it's like how it starts to almost grow into something outside of what you intended it to be. And then it can be really hard to toe the line of like, no, this is not what this was meant to be. Like, someone has to hold that vision. The leadership is extremely crucial in, like, someone does have to make those endpoint decisions. So it's like someone does have to hold the clarity of the vision of what this is growing into. And once it starts to scale and more people come on, you kind of get this issue of like wanting to, it loses the original core like essence as it gets diluted as it grows. So how do you not dilute the potency of what this is directed to become as it expands, and not let these influences that you want to help take the movement over form the movement into something it's not? Because this is a pitfall that happens to all great forms of thought and movements, like integral theory, and you just see it like kind of evolves into almost a cult where it's like either the leader becomes this huge thing where it's all about them, or it starts to like splinter into so many things that it was never originally intended to be. So like, and I don't really see anybody who's avoided that. I think most movements go through that, and I think that's one big problem that we have to solve. So how do you consider that as you scale up further? Is that something that you're keeping in mind? Is that something you're thinking about? Like,
yeah, no, 100%. That was a big one, and my answer is going to, I mean, this is the only answer I know, so I'm not going to say it's the correct answer, but I was worried about this when I initially started, and what somebody that I deeply respect told me, he just said, your voice has to be the loudest, right? Like, if I wanted to keep the vision going one way, my voice had to be the loudest. So I had to figure out these little ways kind of in the background to ensure, right, that my voice was still going to be there.
And it's such a paradox because it's like your voice has to be the loudest, and it's not about you at all. Yeah. Detach your ego.
Yeah, but also you have to look at like Tony Robbins. Like, you hear his name, you hear Tony Robbins, and there's so many other people associated with him, and he's a philanthropist, feeding all these families and doing all these things, making this huge impact. But if he wasn't driving the car, that would not have got there. So I do think that you have to do that. But also, if you like go to one of his seminars, you'll notice he's got a bunch of different leaders as well. Yeah. So I think it's really about servant leadership. There's got to be a driver, but then you have to have a bunch of people on board who are just like about it and who believe in like the idea of servant leadership, because it doesn't mean Tony Robbins is better than anybody, but like if he initiated it, right, and he's continued to be on the path while all these other people have fallen off or lost faith or chose to do something else, but he remained going that way, then I think at that point it's deserved. You know what I mean? But I fully understand that. And as far as the structure that you mentioned, something kind of not turning out the exact way that you wanted, I mean, I think that's inevitable. I think like really early on I developed this kind of like framework that I would just call fluid structure. Right, so it's like a watery structure, because it's like, okay, I have the vision of what I want, but also knowing that it's not going to look exactly like that, because I don't believe that it can. I don't believe you can have exact manifestations. I think manifestations will come about in ways that you don't know, because God or the universe has to surprise you. It has to be like a way that you didn't know. And I mean, really think about it, like the manifestations you did have, you're like, and then this happened out of nowhere, and it's like, you can only see them like in hindsight, because hindsight's 20/20, but like it never happens exactly like you think that it's going to happen. So yeah, just being like adaptable. I think that's one of the greatest characteristics of leaders, aside from being an associative genius.
It's funny you said Tony Robbins and you described him driving the vehicle, because one of the most potent things that Tony Robbins said that really stuck with me was having a flexibility of how you use metaphors, and specifically talking about his team. He described his team. He's like, when I think about my team as a family, right? Like, we're all a family, we're in this together. That's great until it's not working anymore. And then it's like, oh, I can't cut somebody out of my family. Like, you don't cut people out of your family. So now I need a new metaphor. What if now it's a car? And if a piece of the car isn't working, I need to replace that piece. So it's like having different metaphors that work in different flexible situations is really important. And that's what starts to create a little bit of the flexibility and the rigidity of your structure, is having metaphors that still fit. Like, this team can be a family and it can be a car. So it's like that structure of team can now be flexibly looked at through the metaphor that you choose to represent around it. Like, are we a team going to war together, or are we a collaboration of legends? Are we it's like, how do you choose to overlay on top of this movement that you're bringing into the world? I think teamwork. We got to build a team, and I think that's one of the reasons I find what you're doing so impactful, is you have a superpower of gathering people together and creating communities, and it's like that link is what's going to start to bridge all these different legends who have their same flags and their own movements that they're leading together. And the limiting factor is just this feeling of scarcity, where it's like, we're not afraid if someone listens to another person's podcast, but if someone goes to another person's event, we're like feeling like, oh, that's like one less person coming to my event. And there is this like underlying scarcity, which I think really needs to be honored and recognized, you know, because I had this realization once where it's like, scarcity is so ingrained into the fabric of reality to the degree that like electrons and molecules are fighting for different electrons and molecules, and amoebas are fighting for limited resource. It's like, it's the base moving force of life. And we get into this point now where, you know, we have all the things we need to feed and clothe us, our essential basic needs, and yet we still have that coming up, and we don't recognize like, oh, this is coming up because it's like an inherent part of our nature, and it's never really gonna not be. But I think there's ways to work with it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all scarcity is survival.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that survival instinct that causes us to feel that way. But it's all an illusion, you know. And I know you know this as well as I do. And even with the knowledge, it doesn't mean that you're not going to feel it and have to overcome it. It really is a big circle.
It's a network.
It's always a circle going in circles. Everything is. It always comes back around. And yeah, I mean, I really do believe that scarcity is the only thing that stops all of us from growing to like our highest, fullest potential, because it's all about sharing. There's this thing. There's this artwork, and it's heaven and hell. Have I told you about this?
Tell me about it.
Okay, so it's two of the same paintings, but so it's two of the same paintings, and in both of them there's a giant table, there's a feast, and there's people seated all around the table. Now, in hell, everybody's got these contraptions on their arms, okay? And they're all like this, trying to feed themselves. But you can see their cheeks are all sunken in, and they're starving, right? They can't feed themselves. This contraption is stopping them. So inevitably, it ends in death. But in heaven, in the other picture, they have the same contraption on their arm, but everybody is doing that. Everybody is feeding the person next to them at the round table, and it goes back around to everybody getting fed. And it's that fear that like, oh, I'm not gonna get fed. I'm gonna die. That actually ends up killing us.
Everybody got to eat on the team. You know?
Everybody's got to eat.
Everybody's got to eat. And so, okay, if scarcity is one of the blocks that is standing between people uniting under a shared banner, I think the key to that is to recognize that, this is something Jay Waller said about Andrew Tate. He said that I don't need to be Michael Jordan. Everyone doesn't need to be Michael Jordan. I can be Scottie Pippen. I just want to be on the winning team. And I love that attitude of like, it's less important that I'm the top scorer, that I'm the superstar, than we go to the championships and we win it all. Yeah. Right? It's like, would you rather be the star player on the 5th team, or, you know, one of the supporting players on the best team?
Oh.
And I think that's like the key. It's like, it can be even more abundant if you're willing to be that first follower, that first leader. And
who said that?
Jay Waller about it.
Okay, so Tupac actually has a quote that's the same. He said, I might not change the world, but I bet my voice will inspire
I
somebody.
guarantee I will spark the brain that does change
Yeah,
the
that's
world.
right, yeah.
I know the exact way that he said. I might
Yeah.
not change the world, but I guarantee you, I spark the brain that does change the world.
Yeah.
100%.
It's so badass. Such a beautiful mindset to have, man.
Let's say that we all rise to a place of just like extreme abundance, and we all unify and we connect together. What do we unify towards? What's the like? It's like we're like going to a threshold point. We're gonna cross that threshold point, and I think to get to that next level, we got to be really clear on like what is the future vision. I don't know what that is, but it's got to be something around the lines of like, we got to start like farming more and like, farming more and training more and creating the buzzword that has continued to pop up for me, because we do have these tools of transformation so readily available in space. It's like we can reliably create the state shifts that you need to connect to the clarity that's going to guide you on exactly which direction you need to go. And then it's like walking the path. I think communities of accountability are around us that are going, we can declare our intentions that are going to support and hold to it. Then how does that like rise to the next level where we can start like having that world changing?
Yeah. Well, I think, to your first question, you're like, what do we actually work? Like, simply, what is it? And I've thought about this a lot. It's like, what's really the point? What's really the point? Right? Because even if I have all this money, even if I have all these things, all the things I want, it's like, because of my brain is run off of chemicals that go in circles once again, up and down, up and down. It's like, what's actually going to change? So I think the only real change in the world, and this is a massive idea, but it's freedom. Why do we do plant medicine journeys? Why do we want to make a lot of money? Why do we want to lose weight? Why do we want to do all the things that we do, right? It's because we're seeking freedom from the prison of the world, right? From the cage of the cosmos is what I call it, right? We live just kind of entrenched in a world that is, yes, beautiful, but the duality of it is like it's under control by other forces, and
that's where this conversation eventually always leads. When I ask people, it's like, well, fuck, we gotta fight against the reptile overlords. And it's like, okay.
Well, I think it's just internal freedom, really and truly, and it's like whatever that looks like to you specifically, whether that looks like being able to just like go outside and dance naked and like don't give a shit about it, cool. Whether it looks like, having your pregnant wife, chilling on the farm with you and having goats and cows and all those things, or whether that's literally just going off and living in a mountain by yourself. I mean, whatever freedom is to you, it's like, can we all evolve towards our own individual, perceptions of freedom and internal freedom, and what would that world look like if there was truly a world that was free? If every person on the world was actually free. And that's why I said it's like massive vision, but it's like shoot for the stars, so if you fall, you land on a cloud type thing. Kanye West, Because it's like, in my lifetime, if I can free myself and even get just like 1, 2, 3 other people truly free, it's like, that's what's up. That is what's up. And another thing is we're doing all these things alone. It's like, for me, freedom does not look like chilling on an island by myself for 10 years with nobody around. It
sounds like prison.
Yeah, it looks like me chilling on an island with people I love, right? And getting to wake up in the morning and do whatever I want to do with my time, with my day, not feeling rushed energy, feeling love, right? Being able to go and sit in the sand and meditate and do some breath work, go to a live concert with my friends, go to some event at night with all the people I love, and there's just like steak and fruit everywhere, and being able to do that anytime I want and do anything I want. And okay, cool, Hawaii was dope. Now I'm gonna go to Costa Rica, just like that. Being able to snap my fingers, make a decision. It's like, ain't no thing.
Yeah.
And that freedom might look entirely different to you, which I feel like is pretty similar. But, it could look different to anybody. But I think that is what everybody truly wants, is to be free. And, how are we going to get there? How are we going to help others get there? And we can't get anybody there without getting there ourselves first. So, yeah.
We gotta start with the body. That's something I'm pretty clear on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like health is the first step towards freedom and empowerment, because if you don't have a body that's capable of hiking up a hill, you don't have the freedom to go up that hill.
Yeah.
It's like our freedom and capacity originates in what our joints are actually capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's this really fascinating metaphor I love, which I'm always tying the physical to the social and metaphysical. And it's this idea of like, your capacity of your body is what enables you to complete a certain movement or a certain progression without having to compensate and draw from other parts of your body's capacity. And it's the same way in life, right? Like if we're trying to get to this goal of $1 million, but our integrity and our intention is to stay true to our heart, to help and empower people, to not lie as we get there, then we need the strength to be able to hold that intention against the external forces that try to push us as we move towards that path. Mm-hmm. And that starts physically. I see it in my clients. It's like people who don't have the physical tend to fall short when it comes into how they move into the world and into life. That's why I'm so emphasized on trying to teach these keys of the body to people, because I know that that's like the first step on the path of liberation.
Yeah, I agree. I think so that's kind of complex, because I think the first thing that is needed is willingness, right? But like everything starts with the body, true, but you have to be willing first. So
yeah.
I've thought about that, and I've wondered, is it actually the mind or is it the body first? Because you could talk to somebody till you're blue in the face about how they need to take care of their health, but like if they're not thinking about it in their mind, if they're not willing to do it, then it's a problem. But like I've realized also recently, as far as like trauma goes, like I thought I needed to heal that from a mindset standpoint for the longest time, and only recently am I like, holy shit, it's my body. It's my body. Like the body is first.
Yeah. Well, the mind and the body are, connected. There's really like no distinction between them, but it's a feedback loop. So your mind is only going to function as clearly as your body moves, and you're only going to be able to move your body as your mind directs it. Mm-hmm. So when I think of trying to fix people, I like to start from a place, and this is why I think the body comes first, because before our mind starts to form, we have a felt sense. Mm-hmm. And our body is closer to objective reality. Mm-hmm. Our mind is further up on the subjective spectrum of being. So like you could think something, but if I cut you, like that's like you're gonna feel that reality no matter what you think. Mm-hmm. So I think it's gotta start physically, and that could look as simple as getting people to breathe. Mm-hmm. And as people breathe, their mind starts to open up to what's expanded, and then it creates a positive feedback loop in the right direction. But sometimes if they don't have that initial spark, it needs to come externally, which is why creating communities and cultures of accountability is so empowering, right? You see other people, I want some of that. That's one of the special things.
There are so many people dying in community. Dying for leadership even, right? Like, first and foremost, I think that everybody is a leader. Every single person in this world is. All it takes to be a leader is to lead yourself so well that others follow. Right? That's it. There's nothing like spectacular about it. It's like you just have to take responsibility for your own life, the way you show up in the world. Period. And the beautiful thing about it is that every time one person steps into leadership, that, like Tupac, ignites the spark in other people. I run an event, I literally feel like when I started running events, there was nothing. There was nothing happening.
Can relate. It's weird to be like a transformational hipster.
Yeah.
Where you're like our whole like calling has been to spread this to the world, and then you get to a certain point where you're like, damn, this shit's kind of played out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like,
man.
I was doing this before, it was cool, and then but I like that evolutionary pressure because it's constantly pushing me to evolve.
Well, yeah,
to see, like, what's next.
It's there to keep you going to the next level, to the next and to the next, and it's wonderful that there's so much to where it's almost played out.
Yeah, everyone should be a breathwork instructor. Yeah. That's the world I want to live in, where everyone is constantly reminding each other to breathe. You know? So it's beautiful to see it emerge, and it also.
Well, what it means is it's a sign that it's working.
Yes.
It's a sign that it's working, and like, yes, it's in Austin, Texas right now, but like somebody from Austin, Texas travels or moves or does anything, and they're like getting that community itch, and they're like, you know what? I'm in fucking Michigan, and I'm gonna start a men's group. I'm gonna start a breathwork server. I'm gonna start a meditation group. Whatever it is, like now that I've done what I've done here, I know I could go anywhere and do the same things. That's the impact of the world, right? That's people waking up. That's being free and more free, becoming a more free world, right? Because we're fighting back against all these, especially with social media and online, all these. And God knows what's going to happen with AI. I don't know what impact that's going to have on all of this, but I do think that because of AI and because it's so rapid and growing at this ridiculous speed, I really believe that what is going to be the most important currency is the matters of the heart, right? Is the things that make us feel, the things that make us human, the things that separate us from AI. You know what I mean? So I think right now, heart-centered leaders are needed more than ever, right? Isn't it funny how we talk about this opposition, and as the numbers are growing in the heart-centered leaders, and like there's so much conscious stuff happening, that all of a sudden at this point in time, AI happens to show up. The thing that is like honestly the opposite of art, right? It's like the technical, the logical, it's like the brain. And it's like as soon as all of the heart stuff starts just popping up everywhere, like boom, enter AI, enter the brain. And who knows? I'm excited to see it.
Beautiful time to be alive.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be alive at this pinnacle of human society. Shit is happening. And we are reaching a threshold. In our lifetime, as a world, we will make sure that we do reach that threshold point. We cross over the critical mass. I dedicated the last decade of my life to trying to share the tools. And now it's like people have them. So I guess I'm just kind of on what's next.